This is a top-tier criminal organization made up of special forces operatives. Not only are they well equipped, but each individual also possesses unique skills. At this time, they've set their sights on a mining area controlled by a gang. They then observe the security of the target area with drones. They obtain the coordinates of the guards. The group immediately springs into action with their masks on. They advance towards the mining area mightily. The door guards are taken aback. Using such equipment against them is like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. Overwhelming firepower quickly clears the obstacles. They enter the mining area. They eradicate the remaining gang members. However, just at that moment, a hidden assailant in the car suddenly launches a surprise attack. They end up riddled with bullets by the firepower. Lol. All clear. The area is secured. The group drives away in a truck loaded with spoils of war. The operation took less than 5 minutes from start to finish. They returned to base. They used metal detectors to find special rocks. Then they smashed them with sledgehammers. Inside they found gold bars worth a fortune. As more and more rocks were smashed, the table was filled with tempting gold bars. I'll use gold bricks for the feature wall of my restaurant. A wall worth 50 million? Yes. After dividing the gold bars, Shama returned to his mansion and placed them in his trophy warehouse. The inventory here is enough for his family to squander for 8 generations. That very night, several of them had a celebratory dinner with their wives and children. But Shama didn't expect that a teammate would submit their resignation to him. Perhaps age had brought concerns. Today, when a bullet whizzed past his ear, he actually felt fear. His teammate also advised Shama to wash his hands of this life, retire. After all, their current savings were enough for them to live on. There's no need to live this kind of violent and bloody life anymore. Shama too began to waver upon hearing this. But could he really get out of it unscathed? Of course, the answer is impossible. The greater the power, the greater the responsibility. The next day, his sister came looking for him. She demanded of Shama, "What on earth have you done?" It turned out someone had just broken into her home. They not only verbally lashed out at her, but also took away her daughter. His sister knew the kind of activities Shama was involved in. This was very likely the work of an enemy, so she laid all the blame on him. But his own team had never slipped up, making it impossible for anyone to know his identity. So, what was really going on? Shama, who wanted to wash his hands of his past deeds for the sake of his sister, could only put aside this thought for the time being. Little did he know that from this moment on, he had already been drawn into a huge mess. A scantily clad woman knocked on the hotel room door. The door was opened by a skinny old man with a gaunt frame. He sized her up with a sideways glance. Then he let the woman enter the room. As soon as she entered, the woman grabbed his hands and cuffed him. The old man thought it was some new trick. But a second later, the woman unexpectedly opened the room door, leaving the old man gaping in shock. This was simply a foreign version of a scam. In front of him, 2 people ransacked the room. But when the lady picked up a black parcel from the ground, "Touch that bag and you're dead," she was threatened. Daring to threaten them, the lady promptly pulled the trigger. The injury was minor but the insult was severe. However, when the 2 came outside to inspect their loot, they were all completely dumbfounded. Inside the parcel was full of white powder. They just wanted to make some petty cash. But now they had stumbled upon big trouble. Sending it back now is obviously not a wise move. The 2 simply decided to make a mistake and go along with it. They took this batch of goods back to their base. But the small-time thugs at the base couldn't make up their minds either. They didn't dare to mess with people who had so much white powder. If they were discovered, they would undoubtedly be killed. The slightly bolder ones thought they should exchange the white powder for cash. In the end, the minority complied with the majority. They decided to sell off the goods. At the same time, the old man who had been conned found the big drug lord. When he learned that his goods had been stolen, the boss ordered him to retrieve the goods at all costs. Over here, Xiao He, under the guidance of the intermediary, met a buyer who could take off the batch of goods. Unexpectedly, the other party had ulterior motives upon seeing his unfamiliar face. Just like that, Xiao He was not only brutally beaten, but the goods he brought were all taken by them. He Mei also had a big fight with him over this. The attack speed is too fast. The subtitle guy has already bit the dust. However, just as the 2 were arguing, the female protagonist of another fantasy tale was at home feeding her cat, when suddenly 2 intruders burst into her home. Her mother quickly stepped forward to stop them, but was knocked to the ground by a blow. As they were leaving, they left her with a message. "If you want your daughter to come home safely, hand over the goods you stole from us." In order to find her daughter, she immediately went to her brother, Sharma, in order to uncover the truth and save his niece. He went to his niece's bedroom to try and find clues. However, just then, he sharply noticed that someone was spying on his sister's house. And he was certain that this person was involved in his niece's disappearance. So Sharma strode confidently towards the owner of the Audi car. But in the next second, Audi owner was already confounded. Then the man grabbed his hair and dragged him into the house. And found his niece's health insurance card on him. It seems that his niece's disappearance is inseparably linked to him. After an unsuccessful interrogation, the man resorted to an ancient punishment long lost to history. He fetched a bucket of milk, and then covered his face with a floor cleaning cloth, pouring the milk over it. A sense of suffocation instantly overwhelmed his brain. A whole bucket was poured down. Little Kalami finally couldn't take it anymore. And then he revealed what had happened. It turned out that the Mont's niece and her friend Haime were involved in a scam called jumping the ferry. He himself was deceived into the scam and lost a whole 10 jin, Chinese unit of weight, about 5 kilograms, of flour. He had only just kidnapped his niece. But since the goods were in Black Sister's possession, he came back this time to use his niece's phone to contact Black Sister, forcing the other party to exchange the goods for the person. However, it was at this moment that the boss of Kalemimi made a phone call. Hearing that it was the uncle of the girl who had stolen the goods answering the phone, Black Boss flew into an instant rage. He gave the man 1 day to release his own subordinate, and to find that batch of goods, or else be prepared to collect your niece's corpse. With that, he hung up the phone. In order to save someone, the man had no choice but to release Kalemimi, and he warned him, "If you dare come back here, you're dead. Got it? Get lost." Scram. Afterwards, the man checked his niece's phone, found the chat history between her and Black Sister, obtained the other party's location. He sent his sister away, instructing her not to worry too much, assuring her that he would definitely save her daughter. It turns out that the Mont's name was Shama. He was a retired top-tier Special Forces operative. Despite his age for retirement, he had to take action again because of his niece. He found Haime. But the other party claimed that she didn't know where the goods had gone. Shama had no choice but to take Haime hostage and call out her accomplices. Using her life as leverage, he finally got the whereabouts of Bamian. It turns out that ever since they recaptured the goods, they had been double-crossed by Bian-Jay. Now, the goods should still be with him. However, at that very moment, Bian-Jay, who had stolen the goods, came to kill. This group wanted to silence others for the sake of the goods. Facing formidable firepower, the few small-time thugs seemed extremely panicked. But Shama seemed undisturbed. He started the car and floored the accelerator to charge out. Through the windshield, he began to display his godly marksmanship. With just a handgun, he managed to take down several AK-47 wielders. Then, with another press of the gas pedal, he left the scene. This series of maneuvers left Bian-Jay completely dumbfounded. Under the lead of Haime and her group, Sharma directly intruded into Bradesbro's territory. Without any hindrance, they swiftly took control of Bradesbro's wife and child, and successfully found the 10 kilograms of goods. He sent a photo of the goods to Boss Hay. After confirming that there were no mistakes, the two were about to leave, when they were caught red-handed by Bradesbro. This spelled trouble. Mom. His eyes lit up at the sight of the child. As the gate slowly opened, Sharma, wearing a hood, took his son hostage. Seeing the boss' son in his hands, the crowd was forced to lay down their weapons, and he thus seized the opportunity to escape. The two emerged onto the main street with the child, while Boss Hay and his men followed closely behind. The commotion attracted a large number of thugs. In desperation, Sharma hijacked an old woman's car, and handed the child over to her. Seeing a large group pursuing them from behind, he floored the accelerator and charged down the steps. At this moment, all the local punks from the nearby blocks hurried over upon hearing the commotion. Someone dared to cause trouble on their turf. Chun was getting impatient. He executed a drift to shake off the crowd. The approaching gang leader drew his gun and started shooting. Fortunately, Shama remained calm in the face of danger. With his skilled driving, he successfully escaped. After all, on the battlefield, he had survived even more dangerous situations than this. The recent encounter was nothing more than an appetizer to him. Soon after, he received a photo. The person tied up was his niece. He risked his life to retrieve this batch of goods. It was also a maneuver to exchange the goods for his niece. Little did he know that this time, Shama would never be able to turn back. He and the other party had agreed upon a meeting place. The next day, the two came with the goods to redeem the person. Unexpectedly, the other party reneged on their deal. After taking the goods, they failed to keep their promise. It turned out that the boss had taken an interest in Shama's abilities. To be able to snatch back the goods on Braid's brother's turf. And to come out without a scratch. This person is definitely not simple. So the boss threatened him again with his niece, telling him that 300 kilograms of white powder will appear in the city in 3 days. If he could snatch this batch of goods from his archenemy, then he would certainly fulfill his promise and release his niece. However, the boss didn't know that in the future, he would pay a heavy price for his dishonesty today. To transport such a large quantity of white powder, the power of the other party is definitely not small. Going solo is not a wise move. So Shama called his old comrades from the battlefield. Although there was no profit to be made from this deal, but to fight side by side once again. Just the thought made their blood boil. The brothers decided to come out of retirement to help him. Since they were going to make a big move, powerful weapons were essential. Shama was very satisfied with his old friend's efficiency. At the same time, Heimei also gathered a few teammates. The gangsters were still very loyal. They learned that the boss didn't release Shama's niece and that she was one of them. So they decided to help Shama seize the 300 kilograms of cocaine. However, Shama had no respect for these low-powered trash. But Heimei insisted that she could help. To dissuade her, Shama took out a handgun and asked her to rob the cargo by the roadside. Heimei just stunned for a moment before taking the handgun, and walked towards the car owner. Keys. Obviously, Heimei passed the courage test. Afterwards, Shama went to the port to survey the terrain. After just a few minutes of observation, the terrain was etched into his mind. When night fell, they divided their forces. Xiaohei brought professional equipment to someone's home. This device can clone the car key's signal. He turned on the antenna to start searching for the signal source. He quickly located the signal in a corner of the wall. Just like that, he opened the car door without anyone noticing. The car used for the operation was all set. Meanwhile, another team took control of the truck driver's family, to prevent the driver from becoming desperate. At the same time, Lao Bai captured the foreman who knew the inside information from Paradise Valley. But this foreman was tight-lipped. No matter how much they beat him, he refused to disclose the truck's identification number. The next day, the gang was getting ready to make their move. But suddenly they couldn't get in touch with the foreman. The gang leader realized there might be a problem. So he sent other people to order the fleet to depart. As time ticked by the minute, the foreman was beaten until he was foaming at the mouth. But there was still no progress. At the critical moment, Heimei came up with a plan. She obtained a photo of the truck driver, then pretended to sell skin whitening devices to gain access to the port. She quickly identified the driver transporting the goods using the photo. She walked towards the truck. Then she pulled out a gun to control the driver. Don't play any tricks. Otherwise, your wife will pay the price, okay? Black Sister instructed him to depart along the original route. The truck driver could only obediently comply. Inside the warehouse, the teammates had already prepared vehicles and weapons, ready to back up at any moment. Here, the cargo truck was seen leaving the port. The gang's little lackey immediately followed. However, Shama had anticipated this. He stepped on the gas and rammed into the back of the vehicle. Everything was proceeding smoothly according to the plan. Black Sister directed the driver to head towards the warehouse. Shama and the others took control of the unconscious lackey. After all this was done, they also converged in the direction of the warehouse. Meanwhile, the gang leader noticed the truck departing from the planned route, and realized that something was terribly wrong. He immediately sent people to provide support. At the same time, Shama and the others returned to the warehouse. The car was full of toys stuffed with white powder. They immediately transferred them to the prepared boxes. It took quite a while to move the 300 kilograms of white powder. However, just as they were about to leave, a group of heavily armed individuals followed the signal to the warehouse. Under their incredibly accurate shooting, the adversaries were quickly dealt with. But during the retreat, Xiaohei, unfortunately, got shot and fell to the ground. The boss almost lost his breath at the sight. Back at the base, Shama took a photo of the white powder and sent it to the person who kidnapped his niece. They agreed to meet where one would deliver the goods and the other would release the person. That evening, he brought the goods to the agreed location for the exchange. One of the adversaries frisked them. After confirming that neither of them had any weapons, the other side reneged on the deal. You know what? You all are dead meat. Luckily, Shama had kept a trick up his sleeve. He had his brothers lie in ambush here in advance. After a few rounds, the attackers all bit the dust. Shama then ran towards the direction of his niece. A fearless attacker had taken his niece hostage. But for Shama, this was just a clumsy attempt. Put the gun down. Now the niece has been rescued. Shama did not go to extremes. He left one alive. He made him tell their boss all about the goods and today's events. However, it was his moment of leniency. That led to endless trouble for himself. The bearded guy who kidnapped his niece got a hold of the goods. But before he could enjoy his success, his father found out. It turned out that the goods bearded guy had Shama steal were from his father's partner. So the father demanded that bearded guy hand over the goods. But who wouldn't be tempted by 300 kilograms of goods? As soon as the old man got it, he changed his mind. He actually decided to embezzle the goods. Then he pinned the blame for the robbery on the person with the pale face. This way, he protected his son. And also didn't offend his business partners. Why not do it when it's advantageous? In order to leave no witnesses against his partners, he immediately set out to kill the people involved in the port operation. Meanwhile, Black's sister came to the hospital to visit the injured Little Black. However, she had just gone to fetch water for Little Black when the assassin sent by the old man arrived at the ward. When Black's sister came back, Little Black had already passed away on the hospital bed, resenting his fate. Black's sister immediately rushed out of the room. She picked up the box and walked towards the woman she had just brushed past. The doctor hurried forward to stop her. Little did they know, danger had already arrived. The assassin picked up a pistol and started shooting wildly. Nurses along the way were hit one after another. Heimei broke into a run. She completely lost the momentum she had when avenging Xiao He. Watching as the killer got closer and closer. At the critical moment, Shama, who came to visit Xiao He, arrived just in time. He opened fire in the direction of the killer. Shama successfully saved Heimei. However, he didn't expect that. The female killer would turn around and head to his sister's house. When the mother and daughter returned home, the older niece immediately spotted the killer at the doorstep. "Drive, Mom, drive. 8 FRA 217 SFRA 217. The female killer arrogantly stopped her car in the middle of the road, put down the motorcycle's kickstand, pulled out a pistol from her pocket, and performed a series of actions smoothly. However, the next second, the female killer was finished. In the last episode, we mentioned that Shama had seized 300 kilograms of white powder for Brother Hu. As a result, his father took it all for himself, and even planned to send Shama to another city, in order to weaken his power. The female killer from earlier was sent by his father. This is about dealing with all the people who know about this batch of goods. Bearded Bro would naturally not let his father push him around, so he reported his father's location to the police. It turns out that the bald boss is a wanted criminal. Once caught, the least he would face is life imprisonment. Holy moly. True to the saying, like father, like son. Here, Shama learns that his sister's family is being pursued. He used tricks to make 2 fake passports that looked even more genuine than the real ones. He let his sister's family leave and start a new life elsewhere. However, just at that moment, the camera shifts to a woman. She calls Shama, claiming she can help him resolve his current troubles. She even knows that he made fake passports to help his sister's family leave. Shama is very curious about this person. That very night, they met in a car. The woman claims that she has already cleared them of the robbery suspicion. They also told him that the bald boss is now in prison. But this is definitely not good news, because he can still harm you from inside the prison. By then, neither your family nor friends will be able to hide. Sharma didn't know what she was trying to say. The woman continued. Tomorrow is the bald mon's last court hearing before imprisonment. I want you to hijack him on the way. Bring him to me. And then kill him with your own hands. It turns out the woman had found out through investigation that the bald boss had killed her parents many years ago. This time, her meticulous plan was to avenge this deep-seated grudge. She also promised Sharma a down payment of 2 million. After the deed, another 8 million would be paid. Although there was money to be made, he was very dissatisfied with the woman scheming against him, so he taught her a small lesson. We are watching you. After returning, he gathered a few old pals together. Although the risk of this operation was high, the high reward tempted them. So everyone decided to pull off this last job. Afterwards, Shama called the woman. He stated that the final payment needed to be made in advance. Otherwise, the deal is off. There was no other way. The woman could only agree to his terms. Very soon, Shama received the remittance and the armored vehicle's route of action. After making the plan, the day of the trial arrived. This squad, composed of special forces, had already lain in ambush on the prison van's inevitable route. A loud bang. The prison van crashed directly onto the roadside. Immediately after, the squad sprang into action. They executed an extremely professional moving shooting to suppress the prison van with gunfire. Against bandits with such tactics, the escorting officers could only consider themselves unlucky. The entire operation was perfectly coordinated, without the slightest delay. Afterwards, they brought the bald man to the underground parking lot agreed upon with the employer. Shama sensed that something was amiss, because the employer was not waiting here in advance, and they were not answering calls. But to complete the transaction, he decided to wait a little longer. However, what they waited for was a group of gunmen making clicking sounds. It turns out the employer had no intention of letting any of them go. Surprisingly, the other party disclosed their meeting location to the gang they had previously robbed. As soon as the two sides met, they immediately engaged in an intense shootout. An expert in special operations, quickly took care of the bunch of gunmen. He had no desire to linger in the fight, because the employer knew where his niece's home was. He had also participated in the robbery involving the gang leader's niece. He had to go back immediately to rescue them. But it was all too late. By then, the hitman had already arrived at his niece's house. The old man was caught completely off guard. The remaining mother and daughter had no ability to fight back. Each was given a peanut and were quickly dispatched. The younger girl was then taken by them. Shama kept calling home, but no one answered. He knew that something bad had likely happened at home, so he hurriedly called two other old comrades. Have them leave the cafe immediately, and meet up at their own home. As soon as the words were uttered, two assassins rushed in. They immediately got up to confront them. After a fierce battle, another dear friend who had shared life and death together fell on the spot. Meanwhile, Shama returned home, and was overwhelmed with grief at the sight of the carnage inside. He vowed to make the murderer pay in blood. Then, he dug up an old comrade buried underground for many years. There was once again a place to wield it. Soon, Lao Bai arrived by car. He captured one of the killers who had attacked the cafe. In order to find out where his boss was, Shama brought a wooden stake and placed it between his legs, then swung a sledgehammer down on it. Where is he?
You.
Wait. He's at a factory. That's his hideout. That's all I know. Having gotten the location, the two immediately prepared their weapons and gear, and resolutely set out on the path of vengeance. The scene shifts. A drone quietly enters the interior of the factory. Under Shama's precise control, the drone rushes towards a control pipeline. A loud explosion. The entire factory plunges into chaos. Two fully armed individuals, Shama, storm in. They open fire in bursts at the unsuspecting guards. Although their opponents are numerous, but the two, experts in special operations, don't take them seriously at all. They quickly dispatch the bunch of guards. Here, Shama finds the employer who betrayed them. She expresses regret for what happened to Shama's family. She adds that she only wanted revenge. She didn't want to continue killing because she was pregnant. Therefore, she tasked Boss Hay, known as Long Hair, to eliminate Baldy on her behalf. She hadn't anticipated that Shama had a grudge against Long Hair. This led to the series of events that followed. In the end, he still spared the woman's life. However, just as he was on his way to find Chongmao, he was ambushed and shot several times. Lao Bai had no choice but to give up the pursuit, and took Shama to the hospital for emergency treatment. Then he turned and left with Heimei. Meanwhile, Chongmao, who had escaped, was about to leave the place with his family. He ordered his bodyguard to go start the car. The people who arrived were Lao Bai and Heimei. They instructed the bodyguard to slowly retreat back into the house. Inside were Chongmao and his family of 4. However, the two did not commit murder in front of the children. Instead, they had their teammates seize the evidence of Changmao's crimes. Then they notified the police to come and make the arrest, allowing this notorious mob boss to face the punishment of the law. After the two left, Heimei entered the hospital where Shama was being treated, with a pistol in hand. Let's leave this place.